Hello people, I am Jaby KOAY, joined by ARAGORN Jones.
What's up?
And we are reviewing PETTA, the film starring superstar Rajinikanth, Vijay Sethupathi, and Nawazuddin Siddiqui. This is ARAGORN's first Tamil action film. I don't know how many Tamil action films I've seen. I've seen several, as what I know. Let's jump into this. We're gonna start off with the IMDb summary. Though he works as a hostel warden, there's more to Kali than meets the eye. Things take an interesting turn when Kali's path crosses with a group of dreaded gangsters. This is a very interesting summary of the film. I think it covers actually the 3-hour film pretty effectively without giving away too much, without giving away any of the plot twists. There is, for me, growing up with the films I did, there is for me a chunk in that first hour of the movie that felt like filler that didn't really need to be there. It made for a fun first act, I suppose. Like, you were laughing quite a bit through the first hour of the movie.
I think that was more of a, this is who you're dealing with right now.
Right.
It may not have added too much to the story, but it showed you, oh, this is what Kali is like, this is the badass he is, this is the kind person he is.
Right.
And all that good stuff.
That's a fair point. They do establish his character and how capable he is handling himself amongst a bunch of rowdy boys. It does a good job of establishing his character, but there's this love aspect in that first hour that I was like, okay, that's cool. Doesn't come back though. It's really fun while it's there, but it doesn't have any effect later on in the plot. The only effect I can see that it has is there are callbacks in terms of specific lines that he says, in terms of specific things that Rajinikanth does. Like he gives advice to somebody and then he does that later on. And that kind of thing happens a couple of times. And so because of that, I kind of forgave it. But outside of that, it's like, I just wish that they found a way to bring it back. Over the course of 3 hours, you'd think they'd find a way to bring it back. I don't know what else I can say without giving away too much of the plot, so I'm gonna jump into other ideas real quick here. So I wanted to rank Rajinikanth films before talking about anything else, because I've seen 5 now. I've watched Enthiran, 2.0, Kala, Kabali, and now PETTA. This might surprise some of you. I actually really enjoyed 2.0 and Enthiran, and I put those before PETTA. PETTA would be third for me. That doesn't mean it's bad, but for me, if I'm gonna go rewatch a Rajinikanth film right now, it would be either 2.0 or Enthiran. Both of those films I actually found to be quite enjoyable. And I know that you haven't seen any other Rajinikanth films, so you can't add to that whatsoever.
Rank number 1!
Rank number 1 on his list of Rajinikanth films.
Good job, PETTA.
You guys feel free to go to ARAGORN's Instagram and DM him and tell him which Rajinikanth films to go check out.
I need to see more.
Yeah.
Please give me more.
One thing I'm aware of, because I kind of glanced at a review online just to see how other people felt about it, is that this is more in line with traditional Rajinikanth than 2.0 and Enthiran. There was a lot of nuances that Rajinikanth did that seemed to be unique to Rajinikanth, his swag. He has so much swag in the movie that a character at one point says, mas. I think that was the word he used, and which means swag in Tamil. He literally tells him to his face, swag.
There was an entire song about that where at one point they were having a huge party with all the boys and they're like, someone's gonna come here with a lot of swag and they're gonna be super cool. And then he comes in and he's like, I am that person.
Yeah.
And all of them are like, you are that person.
Exactly. That's true. Speaking of which, I really dug the music in this movie, particularly just the score, the movie score. I thought that the movie score was incredible and I actually want to buy it. For me, the closest thing I can compare it to American-wise is somebody named Harry Gregson Williams who did all the Metal Gear Solid video games. He did a number of big picture films. Music by Anirudh Ravichandar. Ravichandar. Dude, you did a great job with the score. Like, yes. It was riveting. Like, there were so many moments where I was like, God, like, I just love this music. I want to buy this soundtrack and just like come up with ideas to it because it's so cool. It's the type of music that I love to listen to and just write down story ideas or scene ideas. He was very, very well chosen and made the movie that much more enjoyable. One thing I forgot to mention is that we were in a room full of Rajinikanth fans. The biggest Rajinikanth fan was sitting right in front of us and he was with his family. I'd never seen this before, but bro was like throwing up, his hands. He was so happy. He was hollering. He went up to the screen and touched Rajinikanth at one point. He was obviously really, really into it on a level that I wish I could be, because it's like, obviously he grew up with the movies and he experienced Rajinikanth in a way that we haven't, that we probably never will. It made an impression on him that is so far removed from us, and it was marvelous to watch. And we could see other people like also happy, but this guy
was just like
next
all
level
in there.
Right, and it was cool. It made me curious to think about what his kids were thinking, like, because I don't know if they'd seen this before. It might be a new experience for them, but he was super into it.
He's like, this is Rajinikanth.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the music. There are obviously music video moments in the film, and I actually enjoyed those songs quite a bit. Not all of them, but a number of them. I was like, these are actually some really cool songs that I would listen to.
I didn't even know what they were talking about. I didn't even read some of the subtitles, but in it I was like, this is really nice. They have really good voices, and it matched up with the music so well. It's like, this is nicely pleasuring my ears at the moment.
Right. Let's talk about the direction. It was directed by Karthik Subbaraj and is written by Karthik Subbaraj as well, which actually surprised me given that he did Mercury. I don't know if he wrote Mercury. I don't even know if he had a script for that. It just says directed by Karthik Subbaraj. I watched that film. It was quite different from this one. Definitely different. Lots of dialogue, comparatively. Well, they said it didn't have dialogue even though it had sign language, so that it was dialogue in a way. You just didn't know what they were saying. It really showed the versatility of Karthik Subbaraj because these are two wildly different movies. Very, 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 very different. If you're coming off of Mercury and then coming to this, you're gonna be quite shocked because it's not the same movie. It seems like Karthik Subbaraj really understood what makes Rajinikanth who he is, like why he's so beloved in India. He sought out to create a true Rajinikanth film from what I can tell.
You did good.
You did good, yeah. I wasn't super impressed with the camera work in PETTA, but what I did appreciate was some of the small things that were happening in front of the screen. It was really neat to watch Nawazuddin Siddiqui opposite of Rajinikanth or Vijay Sethupathi opposite of Rajinikanth and watch their scene work. It was just really neat. And I obviously am a big fan of Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I've expressed before that I really like Vijay Sethupathi. Those are two actors who I feel like are very much in the same range of acting. They're very similar in their approach to acting. And I really appreciated the dialogue, the scene work between them and Rajinikanth whenever they were on screen together. In general, whatever they were doing was really, really good. How did you feel about Nawazuddin Siddiqui?
I liked him. At times, he showed that he was kind of almost sadistic. He portrayed the villain so well that if he was a real life man, I'd be like, I don't want to be near you, ever.
I think that Nawazuddin Siddiqui did a great job of showing versatility in this film because there were moments where he had to play someone who was weak. And I thought that he played that weak individual very effectively. When he's supposed to be the more sadistic character, he does that very effectively. And Vijay Sethupathi has some moments of, let's say, realization in the film. And when he goes through those realizations, it's very awesome to watch. He does a good job of conveying without doing much. He's a very grounded actor, very understated in his performances. And I like that about both Vijay Sethupathi and Nawazuddin Siddiqui. And it's very interesting to watch them opposite of Rajinikanth. For me, watching Rajinikanth opposite of Nawazuddin Siddiqui is almost the same as watching Shah Rukh Khan the opposite of Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I know that the last time I talked about Shah Rukh Khan in a Rajinikanth related video, people were like, oh, Shah Rukh Khan got all his moves from Rajinikanth. Like, that's not what I'm talking about or arguing about. All I'm saying is the style feels similar. Like, you know, when you're watching Shah Rukh Khan in Rise opposite of Nawazuddin Siddiqui, it's almost like they're in two different movies. And watching Rajinikanth here opposite of Nawazuddin Siddiqui, it didn't feel as contrasty as it did with Shah Rukh Khan, but it still felt like somewhat like they were in two different films. Because Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Vijay Sethupathi are very, very grounded actors, and Rajinikanth is like swag 2000, right? Like he's on another level in terms of what he's doing. It was cool, and it was also odd at the same time, if that makes any kind of sense.
It's like sweet and salty.
All right, let's talk about the effects real quick.
One thing I really liked about the effects was for every bullet shot, you could tell they had the bullet go off. I mean, not the bullet go off. They had the bullet go off on the actual person's body, where it had to shoot out and where it had to also drip down on their clothes and whatnot. The makeup was really well done. For a couple parts there was explosions and they had to show where characters had charred skin and whatnot, but in reality it's just really good makeup crew, so good job makeup.
I did notice the visual effects in the film. I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I think that the visual effects here was mostly related to gunshot wounds in the film, like when someone was blood splatter and whatnot. I think that was all done in post-production as opposed to on set, probably for the benefit of just saving time on set. For the most part, I think that they did a pretty good job with it. I could tell at times that it was CGI. That didn't bother me that much. The effects were fine by me. I didn't have a problem with it, but I'm also not like there applauding it. It's fine. Let's talk about action.
The action was good.
So for me, I recognize Rajinikanth's age, and I have to be a little bit forgiving of that. Now, I'm not coming in with I've been watching Rajinikanth my entire life, and I'm just a huge Rajinikanth fan, therefore whatever he does, I'm going to be happy with, right? So I'm coming at it with a more, I guess, objective perspective, a more critical eye, and just, looking at it for what it is. He's obviously, up there in his years. But even with that, I thought he did a better job with the action than I saw Clint Eastwood do in that Get Off My Lawn movie, Gran Torino. Whenever I watched Clint Eastwood do action in the later years of his filmography, it always looked funny to me. And so comparing the two, because it's like relatively close in terms of their age and as to at what point in their career they're doing these action films, I think Rajinikanth did a much better job than Clint Eastwood did in that regard. Clint Eastwood's one of those actors that in the States, a lot of Americans grew up watching him, and so they're forgiving to a point, watching him do action sequences, even though he's in his 70s or whatever, rolling around on the ground and whatever. There's a movie called like Blood Work or something like that, where he gets like a heart transplant, and I remember seeing this sequence where Clint Eastwood rolls on the ground out of the way of a car, and I'm like, ain't no way Clint Eastwood's rolling out of the way of no cars, given his age and how he's moving. Just no, it's not gonna happen. But here, Rajinikanth has so much swag in his, in his movement, and Karthik Subbaraj does a good job of supporting him, supporting his lead actor with the camera work and whatnot. The editing also helps to convince you that he could conceivably do this. That being said, there were moments where I could see, okay, it's tough. He's an older fellow now, and that's okay. That's just natural. Nothing wrong with that. And so I could see some of the limitations that were happening sometimes. But I was having fun during the action sequences that I didn't care so much about it. All I'm saying is I didn't notice it.
I agree with you, but almost to a point, whereas I could tell more when he was using more
the nunchucks?
Yeah, when he was using the nunchucks, that looked like it was a bit straining on him. And when he was using more melee weapons.
Okay.
But when he was going in with the gun, it looked like that was natural to him. He looked very fluid with his motions, and again, that swagger definitely helped him.
I think at one point the nunchuck was just CGI.
Probably.
It might have been CGI the entire time. I thought it was still cool that he whipped the nunchuck out, though. The bravado of whipping out a nunchuck and then beating up a bunch of people as if he's like Tony Jaa in Ong Bak 2. Like, that's still interesting, and it's still fun. For me, I would give this a 3.5 out of 5. I liked it enough to say that I had a good time watching it. There were certain things that were kind of funny for me.
I agree with you on that. 3.5 is definitely a good score out of 5. There was a lot of parts where I was like, okay, this one shouldn't or doesn't have to be in the movie. And 2, for parts in the plot, it was very jumpy to me. So I was like, I can't follow with this. What's going on now?
Yeah.
Who are these new people? Where'd the other people go?
I actually enjoyed that. It was flashing back to give you some backstory, and for me that actually helped to inform a lot of what was going on because they were setting up certain ideas.
But the action kept me entertained enough, the comedy was very funny, and the musicals definitely helped with that.
So this is where we conclude our non-spoiler part of the review. We're gonna talk about spoilers right now, so if you don't wanna hear any spoilers, then leave this video and come back after you've watched the movie. There was like this one great moment Rajinikanth had where he goes into his room when an attack is being planned, and he pulls up a photo. Or actually, before he even pulls up that photo, there's this look he has in his eyes because he just got off the phone with his girlfriend. I actually really appreciated that moment because just that expression on his face, I knew what he was thinking about. He was thinking about his past. And he didn't do that much. It was very subtle. And so Karthik Subbaraj and Rajinikanth worked together really well in that moment because without doing anything at all, I knew what was going on. I knew what was in his head. One of the things the film hinted at is that he's got this past and he doesn't talk about it. It's something he tries to bury down. And when they go into the flashbacks, they show you why he's trying to bury it down because it's so horrific what he went through. It's so traumatizing that no one would want to talk about that. So for me, like concealing all that stuff about him and hinting at certain ideas, and then bringing that up again later on in the flashbacks, I thought that was really cool. And so I actually really enjoyed going into the past and seeing how all this came together. I thought they did a great job there. I'm sorry that it didn't work for you, but maybe it was like just easier for me to read the subtitles and go back and forth. It would also give opportunity for people like Nawazuddin Siddiqui to show you different kinds of performances because, like I said, he was playing a weak version of his character, and then you see this change happen when he murders all those people, and just like the coolness he has as he's smoking while all these people are being shot to death was so killer, no pun intended. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Just how calm and cool and Scarface this is while his men are shooting up all these innocent people.
And he went through 3 different stages at once. He went from being very sad about being discarded from his family,
Right.
to being very cool, like, oh, haha, you're getting shot up. And then he went straight to being insane, where he was like crawling on the ground. He's like, you dead? You dead?
Right. No, that's true. Actually, I forgot all about that till you just said it. I thought that was really cool the way he did that. It felt very authentic. It felt genuine. The way he was kind of losing his shit in that moment. There was some,
The sun.
yeah. There was some interesting plot twists in the film. He supposedly discovers that it's his son, right? That Vijay Sethupathi is his son, and then not really. And Aragorn didn't actually like that.
I didn't like that. It was like, oh, he found a son, and it made sense to me why the bad guy would do that to make him into the ultimate killing machine.
Yeah.
So it's almost like payback. Hi, I stole your son, and I got him to kill you.
Yeah.
And then in the end, he's like, oh, I used you. You're not my son.
Yeah,
I set that all up.
I liked that. I thought it was so dark. It was so twisted that I really enjoyed it. And I especially enjoyed it because having watched Kabali, I'm like, really? Like, he's always reconnecting with, like, people he thought were dead. And now here, really, that person is dead. He did lose his son, and he was just using this guy. It was like the ultimate payback. He's like, not only am I gonna screw you, I'm gonna screw your offspring. And it was a dark kind of Inception sort of ending because it doesn't actually tell you what happens. You kind of decide for yourself.
And he points a gun at the screen, and the movie ends.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know if he killed them. In Inception, the top just kept spinning, and you don't know if he's in a dream or not.
Right.
And that's what this is like, which is what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I actually dug that. I think it's cool to leave it up to the audience to figure out what he does and why he does what he does. To me, it showed just how cold he became because this guy, it seemed like, was formerly part of law enforcement. Is what I kind of understood from his past. The fact that he was that cold really said volumes about just how dark he became as a character. I mean, if you're taking the full volume of the character, you know, the weight of what's happened to this character in mind, then to me, it went with a really dark ending. And it was very unexpected. If you're just kind of looking at it like, as a Rajinikanth fan, and it's like no matter what he does, it's awesome to you because you're just gonna praise him. Like there's that angle too, where it doesn't matter what he did in the end, you're still gonna be happy with it. But for me, looking at it objectively, I thought it was a very bold, dark way to go because you're ending on your character doing something super, your hero doing something super sadistic. You don't see that very often in American films, like Superman, for instance, the golden boy of comic books, right? He cannot kill. Batman cannot kill. It's their rule. The one rule that they follow is Daredevil as well. They cannot kill because he's Catholic. Whereas, you know, Rajinikanth, I mean,
Constantly kills.
Well, not just that, but like the fact that he's willing to manipulate this person in the most despicable way possible, I thought was gangster to the max. I was like, wow, that's messed up. That's really messed up, and I really enjoyed it. For me, I actually dug the ending. I liked the film a lot more after it got away from the first 30, 45 minutes of this like explanation as to who he was, and so even though there was like some fun moments in there, I liked it more once the action got going. That like once we really got into the thrust of it all, then I really got into the film. Like I said, there were some things that were just kind of odd. But overall, I enjoyed the film. And like I said, I gave it 3.5 out of 5.
Watch it.
It was fun. So you guys be sure to check out Aragorn on his YouTube channel and on his social media. Please follow him. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our other reactions, reviews, and short films. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
Aragorn Jones.
Peace out.